a lot of people start these businesses and then they hit that first wave of adversity and they kind of give up. And that's why it's so important for entrepreneurs to have that why and to have that foundation, because this is not a journey for the faint of heart. Don't expect anything in return. Put your head down and work. Let that work compound. For the next 10, 15 years, my life is going to suck. I'm going to have to work. There's not going to be crazy amounts of fun, but it's going to be worth it in the end, because one day I'll be able to provide a life for my kids. I'm in it to make a life that's way worth it. I'm not in it to win a little bit of money and then go celebrate at the club. What am I celebrating? Because this isn't anything. I'm just catching up to everybody else.
How's it going? Once again, welcome to the Fabian Baez Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you like and subscribe. I got to make sure I say that because sometimes I forget to get so caught up in the content and providing value. I forget to put that in. I have a great friend of mine who's a serial entrepreneur out of the Midwest, Nathan Fakhouri. Nathan, thank you so much for taking the time to join. Appreciate your time. Now, you have a really interesting background and a lot that you're working on. The businesses that you're involved in, it's essential, but you don't hear about them too much in terms of like a traditional sense, but in terms of around transportation and logistics, it's really, when you look at like the big picture, right, there's always foundational things that have to get done. And, it's not glamorous, but it's necessary. If you could introduce yourself, talk a little bit about that.
First off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Fabian. It's definitely something that I knew I wanted to get into, owning my own business, and something I always wanted to do, but it was something that I never knew that it would be kind of the path that it took. I just started as a valet attendant back in college and kind of just learned the industry. Started around 17, 18, working downtown, would drive every day for 45 minutes outside the suburbs into downtown, would work as many shifts as possible, learn the business. And within 2 years, by 19, I had started my own company. This actually led to a couple bad situations. I ended up losing everything that I had saved and everything that I had worked for up until that point with a bad partnership. But then I kept going. I rebuilt it. And about 5 to 10 years later, now we own one of the biggest privately owned parking companies in downtown Chicago. We started a unique niche in the transportation industry. And it was a unique opportunity that fell on our plate, where we basically supply drivers across the nation into certain cities to help move cars from the rail yards to the dealerships, or rail yards direct to consumer, a bunch of different combos in that sense. Basically, we had found that there was a slowdown in the industry and there was a huge need for truckers. And basically, that's where our service came in. Now we compete with the truckers by sending teams of drivers to physically drive the cars out of the dealership, out of the rail yards and ports and into the dealerships.
So really interesting. You talked about whether it's a business partnership, real estate partnership, things not going well. Could you can elaborate as much as you'd like in terms of details, but what was it about the partnership that hurt the business? Was there something underhanded that was going on, or something you didn't realize at the beginning?
I was young and naive and super trustworthy kid that's just like, oh, we're going to make money together. Let's go make money. We don't even need an agreement, or just barely a solid agreement where it didn't protect my interests. So basically, I had met a guy through valet. I became a manager for his company, and then I ended up partnering with him and put up $10,000 to start a small company in the outskirts of Chicago. So about 5, 6 suburb locations that we had. And I ran all the operations. So I was running everything. And basically after about a year, I started seeing these guys that he kept around. One of them pulled me aside because we would all talk. He told me these 2 guys were investors that he wanted to bring on as a potential partnership. One of them had a lot of connections in the healthcare industry. He had told me that they were going to come on as partners. Everything was good. One day I get a call from one of the guys and he says, hey, Nathan, can I ask you a quick question? Why do you always say we when you're talking about business? I was like, what do you mean? Why are we talking about we? It's because I own half the company and we're all going to partner together. And basically that's when the cat was out of the bag. We all met, me, him, and the other guy that were partners. We had found out over the last year, 2 years, every expense we had, like if there was an accident at a location, this guy would take half the money from me for the expense. And then he would also charge them full price for it. He was making 50% on every expense we had because he was double dipping on both sides, saying that we needed this for startup costs and this happened and we need more funds. And he ended up taking them for total 100K. He took me for about 10 to 15K. The advantage that I had is I was the one running all the locations. All the managers knew me. And basically when this happened, I'd gone off on my own and I ended up partnering with those other 2 guys. And that also led to some downsides. And that was a learning lesson as well, because I just jumped into bed with them without a solid agreement. As I was the one running the entire operation, putting the time in, and they were more silent partners. One helped with payroll, small things like that. And they weren't really doing the roles that they had promised and kept up to at the beginning. So I went to all 6 locations and told them, hey, this is the situation. We ended up finding finding out this, and this, and I'm starting my own company. I would love to switch with you guys. They're like, oh, of course, you're the guy that we know. We don't even know this other guy, Frank. And yeah, we'll continue on with you guys. Just let me know what new contract needs to be signed under the new company, and we'll move forward and switch it from there. So basically every restaurant but two of them, and the only reason why was because he was best friends with the manager. They played hockey together in high school. So to that manager, that guy could do no wrong, even if you had the entire town coming. But what I ended up finding out was this guy is a shark. He's a scam artist, and he had been in the Valley industry and was very successful in the early 2000s, but he screwed over a lot of people, some really bad situations that I ended up finding out later on that completely shocked me. But again, it was a learning lesson. I lost everything, but I kept going, and now it's turned into what it has. And I feel like a lot of people start these businesses and then they hit that first wave of adversity and they kind of give up. And that's why it's so important for entrepreneurs to have that why and to have that foundation, because this is not a journey for the faint of heart. I live on the bridge of insanity every day, and nobody knows it. Your mind's always in. It's been like that for the last 10 years, trying to do what you can. And it's like you have that superiority complex, but you also have the other side of that, which is like that crippling insecurity, like you're not doing enough and there's more out there for you. So just a mix of those things, and I kept going. But that's why it's so important. You're going to take licks in whatever business you start out in, especially as a new company. And it's crucial that you move forward, because if you just keep starting businesses and until that you hit that first brick wall, and then you go start another one, well, you're going to just keep hitting brick walls and you're never going to find that instant gratification. Yeah. And that's one of the worst things I think about this generation is that instant gratification. Oh, they want it now and they don't think they need to work hard for it. I didn't know I was going to be here. All I knew is that I wanted to do more with my life. I saw a lot of success growing up, and I came from a low-income family, and it made me hungry. A lot of my why goes also back to my father, which we can go into later. Now my son and my family really is men running from adversity, thinking that having that fear of failure, that you're not good enough and it's too much for you to handle, or you know what I mean? Money isn't everything, but it gives you the capability and the means to, number one, supply a life for your family and be able to have your wife raise your kids, which is so crucially important, and being able to keep expanding and keep growing throughout your life and this journey that you're taking up the mountain.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely talk about the why in a bit. Now, just backtracking, where you're originally from, and can you share a little bit about your background and upbringing?
Yeah, so I came from a low-income family in the suburbs of Chicago, basically in Mount Prospect, Illinois, small town. Grew up playing sports. Football was my first love, I always say. And growing up, I kind of just saw we struggled financially, but I also had family members and uncles that were very, very successful. So I was able to see what's attainable in life if you do the right things. And they all came here from nothing. And even my dad started multiple businesses. He had a liquor store at one point. Those didn't work out at the end of the day. And this was earlier, kind of before I was born. And by the time kind of I was being brought, he was working at different jobs. He worked at Target. He worked at gas stations. High school was more middle class to higher class families. So it was kind of definitely like something that almost put a chip on my shoulder growing up, that I knew through his sacrifices that's why I needed to do more and accomplish more in life. And that's definitely the start of my why, because it's like, what kind of man would I be if I saw that and just said it wasn't my problem? That said my family's legacy isn't on me now to bring us to that next level. Because I mean, what kind of father would I be for my future sons? What kind of man would I be in all? And that's where it's so sad, because the society nowadays is constructed to make you feel that way and to make you give up and to give into that fear of failure, that you're not good enough. I mean, from everything from literally the food we eat gives us toxicity, and it gives you all these issues and mental issues, and it holds you back from your true potential in life. And it's just sad to see the world, because everybody has that light in them. Everybody has the ability to come out from, I don't care where you were. I mean, at a certain point in my life, I tried killing myself at 2 points in my life, and they were my rock bottoms. One was after high school, major concussions I had, and then another one was later on during the same post-concussion syndrome era, if you want to call it, from 2010 to 2014. And I just had some really rough times through then. And it doesn't matter how low you were, what you did. It's a matter of what you do moving forward. And if you can put your head down and know that nothing's going to come instantly, it may take you 10 years. It may take you 20 years. It may take you 3 years. You really don't know. I mean, one of the best quotes I've heard recently is, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So the quicker you begin this journey and put your head down and just work, don't expect anything in return. Just put your head down and work. Keep working, keep working. Let that work compound. Don't make money and start spending it because you think, oh, I'm making $1,000 a week and think that's something. That's not shit. Don't let society think, oh, 50K to 75K is, it really isn't. And if you want to supply that life for your family, and I'm not meaning spoil your kids, because that's one of the things I won't, but it's to give them the opportunities, to give them those family memories through vacations and through certain things and activities and skill buildings and different things like that through sports. That, I mean, it really makes it worth it. It's crucial for people to understand that when when they begin that journey.
So I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that in terms of the couple low points that you had, because that's something I've spoken about on my YouTube channel regarding certain things that I've gone through. What was it for you that helped you, and a word that I used in my video, overcome that, get over that hump and turn the corner on it?
So the first time I was a sophomore up on varsity, this was back in 2010. And basically, I mean, that's where I said football was the love of my life. I wanted to play college ball, dreams of playing pro. I was up on varsity. We had 9 full speed collisions with their all-state linebacker. Back then, I mean, they used to call me the suicide bomber because of the way I hit. And it was a sick. I liked it. I loved when I got hit and the bell rung and you were just able to provide that collision. I kind of got off on it in a sick way. So that game, I was jacked up because I was like, I'm going to show everybody who I am, why I'm up on varsity, all these things against their all-state linebacker. But by halftime, we were down 49-0. And I was only on kickoff and I played a little bit of defense at the time. So I was the middle of the wedge and my job was to run full speed at that guy, blow him up, and his job was to run full speed at me. And 49-0, that's 7 full speed collisions. And I'm pretty sure I got concussed after the first one. So that led to just a downward spiral. And at the beginning, like, when I say hopelessness, I couldn't even get out of bed some mornings. You just like have no will or no desire. The apathy was horrible. And it was just time. Time helped heal. And then kind of just the realization of how much time I'm wasting, because I was always very motivated to achieve more. So this was like a complete change to me and a complete flip in my brain from being a guy that you would say, hey, you can't do this. And to be like, all right, thank you for that. Watch what I do in these next however long it's going to take me to accomplish whatever you said I couldn't do, to somebody that would just get beat up by verbal, you know what I mean, critiques, and just not be the man that I really knew I was. Or that was the roughest point, because it's just like I'm so used to having the right mentality to get through adversity to going to like the complete opposite of that. So with time, and then I just kind of slowly started working, got my priorities right, and about 4 or 5 years later I finally recovered. And then it kind of just was complete. It was like exponential recovery. As the longer the time went on, it got better and better, and I was finally kind of at full swing, finally healthy, and realized, you know what I mean, there's more to life and there's no growth without pain. And that's the biggest thing. And I was able to take that darkness and start the valet, and then I started working downtown, and then I started my own company. Then we started the transportation while I was finishing school at DePaul University. So it all kind of just came together. And then I had another wave of adversity back in 2018 where I was working a valet location of a new location that we just started. And some guy who had eye surgery scheduled 3 days later hit me going 25 miles an hour in his BMW. So it kind of brought me back to square one. The only thing that was better this time was I knew what I was dealing with, because back in 2010, it took me 4 years to realize that the reason why everything flipped for me and I became lazy, apathetic, lethargic was because of that concussion, because concussion studies weren't what they were back then. So then 2018 happened. Okay, get hit by a car. Now I know, okay, I'm about to go through hell. So I was able to mentally prepare for it a lot better and actually have the face to the devil that I was dealing with and that I was up against. So that definitely helped. And then again, with that, it was time and a place called the Neurologic Wellness Institute. I almost fell into the trap. And this is why one of my goals is to open up a like advisement company for people with post-concussion syndrome, CTE, things like that, because the medical system nowadays, just like the food we eat, isn't always the best and the best way to go about healing your body. I went to one of the top neurologists in the city of Chicago, and they basically told me unless I was going to move to an island and meditate for a year straight every day and have no stress in my life, I needed to take pills. These pills were Adderall, and then they tried Ritalin, and then it was antidepressants and all these different things, nerve blockers like tramadol. They wanted to give all that to me. I had an addictive personality. They just had no regard. And imagine how many kids and people go through that and don't have the guidance or the mental ability to not fall into that trap. And then it makes the situation worse. And that's why a lot of people have killed themselves from concussions. One of the side effects from it, you have suicidal ideologies for no reason, meaning your life can be completely fine, but for some reason, you just feel hopeless. And that's how it was for me. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life. I was decently attractive, and like there was nothing major in my life that should have made me feel that way. And the same thing in 2018. I had my businesses rocking, making 6 figures a year, and I was back in the same exact spot and had to deal with the depression and not getting out of bed for about another year and a half, 2 years. But thankfully, that place, the Neurologic Wellness Institute, was a way to bring holistic and actual therapies that help target parts of your brain rather than just trying to prescribe pills for the symptoms and thinking that it's going to go away one day. because those pills will lead to other side effects. And now you're in the trap. Now you're going down the rabbit hole, and it's going to be a downward spiral, which is why I want to create Upward Spiral Health. And I've created Upward Spiral Media, which is also to help kind of motivate and bring more awareness to the capabilities that we all have, but that life sucks out of us to the point that we just have this big fear of failure, and nobody wants to take those risks and take those chances, and they're all afraid to fail.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about your other business ventures, that's for sure. And the brain is so magnificent of a tool, and there's a lot of research that covers it and goes around it, and there are a lot of concerns with a lot of athletes, so forth, brain trauma, etc. So glad that you were able to rehabilitate yourself. That's awesome. Now, in terms of your entrepreneurial pursuits, you had mentioned earlier your uncles who also had businesses. Were they early motivating factors to inspire you to go that route, or was it just something else inside you?
They kind of helped me see what was capable, and it created that hunger in me because I was able to see like firsthand. It's not like you could see, oh, how, you know what I mean, the high class is living. I mean, actually, back then you wouldn't see it as much because I wasn't so much on social media. I mean, social media was kind of just starting out when I was a kid. So you would see a little bit of it online, but to see it up hand, to see the nice houses. One of my uncles had a Phantom. It's just like, this is completely attainable. And it created that hunger where it's like, I need to achieve that for my family because we didn't have that. So it definitely was an early motivator, knowing that I was just like, this is something that I know I need. I don't want to put my family through the struggle and not be able to provide for them. And like I said, my father's entire life was a sacrifice. You know what I mean? He fell short, but he also taught me so much. Taught me so much about the value of a dollar. Taught me so much about humility and being humble and just working and saving your money. When I started out, I saved so much. For the last 10 years, I'm finally getting loose with my wallets where I'm going on vacation. I'll enjoy a little bit of life. But for 10 years, I had my head down and I was working. I barely went out, every once in a while, more to celebrate than just for the weekend kind of thing. And it was just put in that work and let it compound. Like I said, that was to my father because he had taught me how much ahead of life I could have gotten by saving that dollar and by, you know what I mean, not making money right away and spending it. And that's why it's so crucial for you to have the why built in you. Because like I said, you're going to make a little bit of money and you're going to have these tests where friends are going to hit you up. Oh, let's go to the club. I had a buddy early years of college, but he was a high school friend. He came to my house. I showed him, like, I'm not going to say the exact amount, but it was a lot of cash at the time. It was the most he had ever seen. And his response is, let's go to the club. We could use that at the club. And it's just like, bro, you're not getting it. I'm in it to make a life that's way worth it. I'm not in it to win a little bit of money and then go celebrate at the club. What am I celebrating? Because this isn't anything. I'm just catching up to everybody else. For the next 10, 15 years, my life is going to suck. I'm going to have to work. There's not going to be crazy amounts of fun, but it's going to be worth it in the end because one day I'll be able to provide a life for my kids. Now I have 2 kids and we have this beautiful view during the summer. The fireworks go off and my son's eating dinner and he gets to see a fireworks show that I used to dream of when I was a kid. Now I want to make sure that I create that struggle for him in a controlled manner where it gives him that same hunger, because my biggest fear is strong men make great times make weak men make hard times. And that's the last thing I want, is to spend the last 20, 30 years of my life dedicated to building this and then not raise my sons right. So that's why it's also crucial in the way I've structured my companies that I can be a present father and still be an entrepreneur and build all these different businesses by building a team around. And the only way you're going to do that is by giving equity and giving things to the guys that will be your right-hand man and guys that can have incentivized packages in the deal to grow with you as the company grows itself.
That is an amazing view. Is that the Atlantic Ocean in the background?
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan. Stand corrected. Yeah, amazing. It's admirable. And wanted to ask you, in terms of you had mentioned the business lane that you kind of fell into in terms of transporting from the rail yard to district. Can you talk about how that came about, a little bit about that process? Because that's really, it's not something that's talked about a lot. I think everyone's seen the trucks that carry I think it's usually 9 cars, so forth. And you try to make sure you keep away from it because that's always a pretty nerve-wracking sight, just seeing those cars kind of dangling, Yeah, talk a little bit about that because that's really interesting.
Definitely. So it was an opportunity that kind of fell in my lap. This is where I just said, like, I never would have known in a million years that I was going to get into the transportation industry in such a niche, unique way. But that's where I just put my head down. I was growing my valet company. And then one day we got a call and there was an inquiry where they were looking for a network of drivers in Chicago. So we answered the call and basically we started a venture contracted through, our first client was Tesla, and basically started moving cars from dealership to dealership, kind of used cars. More of this car is getting picked up for this customer here that we sold So it started with that. Then it kind of slowly picked up to the sense that they wanted us to start getting more drivers and drive into the rail yards and drive anywhere from 5 to, we've done as much as 25 cars at a time. And what we ended up finding out is the reason was this is because millennials are not going into trucking. Millennials are not even going into trades as much anymore. Millennials are trying to go into crypto and hit that $100 million moonshot. And that's the issue. And people, I mean, and don't get me wrong, e-commerce, all these other avenues where people can make money from their computers, which is also great. And it takes a lot of work, but logistics, trades, it's the way of the world. It's the way the world runs. It's the way the world's built. So there's such a huge demand in it that the trucking industry has created this kind of switch back to the old school way, because before truckers and trailers existed, this is how they would do it: is they would have a team drive the cars from the rail yards to the dealerships for the customers to then go to the dealerships and pick them up. So we've come in and brought that old school version back, and what they actually found is we're more efficient. We can move I can have 20, 25 drivers with 2 shuttles out moving 200 to 300 cars a day. We're starting with our 3rd OEM, so it's something that is only heating up, and we're starting nationwide in over 13 cities, and it's kind of only just begun in that sense. So I'm excited for what's to come. I mean, the industry is slowing down a little bit right now, so it's getting a little tight, but it's okay because it's going to pick back up. And one of my next steps is to actually get my own fleet of trucks. That way I'm a transport company that has both options, and we're more appealing to OEMs and to rail yards and auction yards as a preferred client because we have that efficiency. And like I said, we're way more efficient where truckers have restrictions. And we actually have found that there's less damage other than the occasional actual accident that happens from getting rear-ended. There's a lot of little damage that happens when these cars are on the trucks, from the rims getting scratched to the undercarriage, things like that coming in on and off. So they've actually eliminated all that damage in a way as well. And that's, we found, has helped it out a lot.
And you mentioned OEM. If you could share what that stands for.
So anybody that builds their own cars. Kia is not an OEM. They're owned by a company that is the OEM for Kia in that group. Where Tesla is, they build their own vehicles.
Really interesting stuff. That's great. Now, can you share a little bit about your other ventures? You mentioned the media company that you have as well.
Yes. Well, so next, actually, what happened was we got an opportunity after we started transportation where we got a call from Instacart to start. They were looking for a network of drivers to handle deliveries in Miami. So that was my 3rd business, which is courier services. And I think it's the most untapped potential that I have yet, given the fact that so much demand for it, whether it's package delivery, food delivery, alcohol and cannabis delivery, medical courier delivery. The opportunities and clients are wide, and the market is huge. Deliveries for meal kit companies, for companies like Instacart, where we supplied their driving force in deliveries when they were doing 15-minute deliveries throughout 6 hubs in Miami. So we can come in and kind of supply that driver force. It was a short-term contract that we worked with them, but it was a great learning experience into the market and how a kind of big company like that operates. And we've worked with a couple other companies like Getir, ShareBite, Thistle, and more through that as well. And then most recently, we started Upward Spiral Media. I wanted to kind of start my personal brand to help share my story. Like I said, there needs to be more men doing this. Even if I help one person, it's worth it for me, because at the end of the day, like, this world is full of darkness. And if you're not aware of it, open up your eyes, because it's there. And you may not know it because you've already fell into the trap. And the biggest thing is to kind of see that and know that you need to change. And that's where I just kind of want to share my story. And instead of just hiring a company, I was like, let me do this myself, create a business out of it, because I already have a relationship with companies to create video marketing for them and different things like that. So I made it a company, and I'm just, my personal brand is a project in that company. And we have about 5-6 clients right now. We just started at the end of last year, and it's growing. And it's another thing that I'm not expecting for this to make millions in the next year. I know this is going to be a 5, 10 year, 15 year journey until this really has the legs to make it worthwhile. And you know what I mean? Make it great. So, and that's kind of the lifespan of every company, is nobody's going to find that success in the first 5 years. And if you do, it's because you're very lucky. And by luck, I mean, you may have heard a lot and then finally hit that opportunity, found it, and you jumped on it. Hats off to you, because a lot of people can't find that on their first go of it.
And there are a lot of successful businessmen and successful business people in different lines who, once they attain a certain level of success, they start their own media company, right? They start kind of telling their own story, creating content, so forth, helping others. It's become a way of the world now. So that's prevalent right now. So we wish you all the best with that. Now, when you're not working and you have 2 young children, what do you like to do for fun, for recreation?
So that's If you would have asked me in the last 5 years, I would have said nothing. I relax at night and then go to bed, and then it's work, work, work all day. There came to a point in my businesses, it was about 4 years ago. I was in Austin doing a launch for a market. So I was driving in Austin. I was trying to catch my flight back then when I'd launch a market, depending on the size of it. Sometimes if it was smaller, I'd fly in the first flight of the morning, leave by the last flight of the day. So I was trying to rush to make my flight. Meanwhile, it was Friday and I had payroll due for my valet company. Because back then there was like one or twice that I missed payroll and everybody had my head. So I was like, I got to get payroll in. So that's the point where I knew I needed to bring on help. I actually partnered with my older brother and brought him on. And that gave me the freedom to finally actually pursue things. I started shooting a lot and kind of learning. I didn't know much about guns. It's kind of something that I've always wanted to learn, and being able to have that, and now having kids, it's just, I feel like every father needs to have that ability to protect them. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So that's one of my main things that I spend a lot of my free time in. And then networking. Vacations were another motivator for me, because I would see pictures growing up and it was just like, I don't understand how people can live an entire life and live in one spot, or maybe vacation once or twice. Like, you only have one life, and don't use that as an excuse to go get fucked up every weekend. Use that as an excuse to become the best version of yourself and create a life that you could never even imagine. I would have never imagined this. I used to drive by this building when I was a kid and be like, oh my God, it would be so amazing to live there one day. And it was just a dream. So with all those things, and all the odds were against me, and everybody had written me off, especially after I got in the concussion and everything like that. Don't count yourself out. Don't let society beat you up, because there's haters everywhere. There's people that are going to hate on you, that are going to give you the evil eye. And the biggest thing is just to keep working, put your head down, work, and work more. And eventually one day you'll look up and you'll see how far you've gotten. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where the sense is like, okay, I can live with it. I was at a networking event in Miami, and somebody had told me, they're like, listen, you're making good money now. You're 28. Why are you not enjoying it? And I was like, you know what? You're right. This is where it's like, I'm a little too hard on myself and don't think I've done enough. And I still question like how much I've done, how much I'm behind, and finally gave me the peace of mind where it's like, you know what? Every once in a while, I'm going to take that time. We went to the Bahamas the next day, and that was something I'd always dreamt of. So it's just been amazing to be able to put in the work and finally get all those rewards of things that I dreamt of, and a lot of people wrote me off as never being able to achieve.
There's a lot to be said for working hard and putting in the time, but you also, as you mentioned, it's one life, and you definitely want to take your moment to enjoy it and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Being around people that I like enjoy, that are winners, that's what I'll do in my free time, is just try to find more people like that, because I was such a lone wolf for so long. Through shooting and just through networking, and you know what I mean, putting yourself around the right people has been one of my biggest things that I've done with my free time now, more so than anything else.
Yeah. Now, earlier we were discussing, and you alluded a little bit to your why. If you could elaborate on that, and what is most likely your biggest motivating factor that drives you.
Like I said earlier, it started with my father. His sacrifices, everything he had done. What kind of man would I be if I didn't put that on my shoulders and say, you know what, Dad, relax. Now it's my turn. Let me do this and let me take care of you and be able to provide a life for my son and go on like that. Like, you need to sign up for adversity as a man. And that was one of the biggest things that gave me that entrepreneurial kind of kick in the ass. Like, hey, I need to do this. So that, and then having my son, like I said, what kind of father would I, or what kind of son would I be to my father? And what kind of man would I be to my future son if I didn't put these things on my shoulder to be able to accomplish them the most? I want to create a legacy. I want to create an empire, and I want to be that guy on the wall that said Grandpa's the one that started it all. And for me, that's what life's about. I know you can't take money to the grave with you, but you can take a legacy and what you've done and the impact that you've made on the world. That's why I even started the personal brand. I don't have an offer. I don't even know what my offer would be. My main thing is I just wanted to share my story to help whoever I can help. Because for me, like I said, if I can help one person become better or get out of a hole or get out of darkness to achieve and find that light that, like I said, everybody has inside. It's the fear of failure in society that just tears that out of you. Like, we all have that thing as kids where we want to be this, we want to be that. And I feel like it's been a lot of men, and then they get sucked into video games. And it's just like, why? Upgrade your own character. There's so many things that I need to work on still. My fitness, different things like that. I have so much work to do. Like, this isn't going to stop. This isn't going to stop anytime soon, is the work. And then being a father to my son and being a father to my daughter and growing my family. I want to have 5 or 6 kids. And I told my wife it depends on how many girls or how many boys she gets me, because if she keeps giving girls, I may have to cut it after 3 or 4, but just joking. But yeah, man, it's just really important for me to be able that guy for the next generation, to be able to supply a life where my kids can thrive and create something new. And also, the last part is, like I said, with society being there, it's on all men to be able to spread that light, because if we're all doing this, we're all living to the best life, it's only going to motivate each other. It's like a contagious light that can be spread if everybody just decides, like, listen, enough's enough. Let's live for more. Let's live to explore the entire world, like traveling, things like that. And like I said, it's being that father, being that son to my father, making all his sacrifices worth it, then being that father and that superhero to my kids, and then being able to motivate others through the accomplishments I've made and through the advice that I can give through my story.
Yeah, it's incredible. And while you're doing it, also with your media company, you can document it and share that story. And very similar to what I'm looking to do is just put my story out there and see if I can provide value in some way, even if it's to one person. It still makes a difference.
Exactly. It makes it worth it. You're grave without ever sharing your story. And it's like, it's less impact that you're going to leave on the world. And it's like, what are we here to do if it's not to spread positivity, to spread
Absolutely.
life, to spread, joy. And I feel like the world is so clouded with darkness that we all need to come together more than ever now to really kind of bring back just life and what it was before and the meaning of life, to really make it worth it.
It's truly necessary. I want to thank you for your time, Nathan. And this is a truly inspirational story, and wish you all the best. Again, in closing, I always ask guests about gratitude. It's something that I practice every day. I believe in it. When you hear the word gratitude, what does that mean to you?
Gratitude for me means being able to sit back, take that deep breath. I'm grateful for everything that the world has given me, to be able to cherish the things that you have, even though you're not where you want to be, but just knowing that you're on the steps and it's all part of the journey, and just being grateful to be alive, because there were times that I wasn't. I felt like I'd be better to just turn off the switch and never wake up. I would say is more so just kind of that light, that hope, and that kind of breath of fresh air. I don't know why I think of breath of fresh air when I feel gratefulness, or when I think of gratefulness, because it's just like, look, like everything's going to be okay. We've come this far, but it's still no excuse to stop. And you just got to keep working, keep growing. And like I said, if anybody, I didn't say this earlier, but to close out, if anybody, my story relates with you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me. If I can help give you advice on anything from business to, personal life, whatever I can do, I'm here for anybody. I don't charge for anything. Like I said, I'm here. I have no offerings. I'm doing this just to spread light, to help men become the best version of themselves and find brotherhoods in the process.
Well said. Thank you for coming on. And again, guys, please like and subscribe. This was an amazing episode of the Fabian Baez Podcast with Nathan Fakhouri, a serial entrepreneur out of Chicago. His handles will be in the description. Want to thank you again, and tune in for the next episode. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Fabian.
Thank you.